Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome back to the final part of Future of Gaming and the last session of the last 2 days. You are my favourite people because you are the ones that come back to the end of the events, so we save the best for last for you guys, so give yourselves a little pat on the back for that. And we do have a great end to the day as well. We are going to be kicking off the last part here with what is really going on in the mind of a gamer. And we have Jack Benjamin from Media Leader back on stage, who will be talking with Lou Emerson, the UK Sales Director from Twitch. Please welcome them onto the stage.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Steve. Yep. Hello, Lou. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Good. So as Steve mentioned, we really want to understand a little bit more about the gaming community and gamers themselves. And I'm a gamer. I'm sure there's many gamers still in the room, but as a community as a whole, I'm sure few could speak better to that than someone from Twitch, which has absolutely, I would say, maybe cornered the market on gaming live streaming. So talk to us about sort of the past few years. We had a huge spike in popularity of gaming, as we talked about earlier during the pandemic. What have you seen from Twitch in terms of the types of conversations that gamers have been having?
Well, it's definitely been a whirlwind the last couple of years. It pretty much, I've been with the business since 2019, and we were still in a stage in the UK where, we were talking to advertisers and agencies about the market, and, we talked to them about certain streamers and gamers, and they'd be like, who? Sorry, who's that person? And so I feel like, we were still at that earlier stage of, kind of educating people about the world of streaming and gaming. The pandemic, whilst a tough time for lots of us, was a great time for gaming and for Twitch. And I think we put a lot of that down to connectivity in a time that we couldn't connect with people physically. You could in online communities. And, when I think about Twitch and when I think about gaming, the best way I explain it to my mum, should we say, it's a place that people spend time together. So, it's a place where people connect, it's a place where people are for entertainment, and, those communities build around that. So, again, during the pandemic, we not only, our credentials are in gaming, and we're, super proud of that. People always ask, with Twitch, what's the next big thing? And, the big thing is still gaming, but there's lots of different behaviours that happen in gaming that have allowed us to expand into different areas such as music and sport. But I think the way that has happened is the behaviours in gaming have really differentiated the way that people consume those different verticals on Twitch. So specifically to gaming, what happened over the course of the last couple of years, where we really diversified, the maybe stereotype which we still get of a gamer, and whether that's within the diversity of race or kind of culture, and most definitely bringing more female streamers to Twitch. So it's been a big learning. It's been super exciting, and the chat is still number one on Twitch.
Mm-hmm. Could you speak a little bit more about? You have a live chat function, so you are hearing direct conversation between gamers who are viewing a live streamer and the person who's actually playing the game.
Yes. So, the chat is I would say the core piece of like what makes Twitch so unique. And, we talk a lot about, being in that moment and being live. But our community and the people that are consuming Twitch also have an opportunity to inform the content that they're consuming by being in that chat. So you have to be logged in to be able to use the chat, and once you're in there, you can talk to your streamer, and that direct relationship is what keeps people coming back, and it's what I think the average use in the UK is 3 hours 4 minutes per day that people use Twitch daily. And so when you compare that to the likes of TV now, that's pretty impressive, especially when you're thinking about hard to reach audience with Gen Z. So the chat fuels that. If you're not involved with the chat, if you're not collaborating with the people that you're watching, if you're not fueling the content that they're creating, then it's not as exciting. You don't get as many lurkers on Twitch. You get people that really are there for that experience.
And from a brand perspective, where do they enter the conversation then? Because you have all this interaction, this big community, and small communities as well, depending on who's watching what. But what are the sort of opportunities then for brands to get involved, and what are the trends, let's say, that brands should be most looking at the moment?
Yeah. So it's still quite daunting, I think, the idea of brands getting involved in gaming. Not for all, but still, as we talk to more and more advertisers, that is definitely things true. The way that we think about it is more of a crawl, walk, run. So if you just want to turn up to be on Twitch, video advertising is the easiest way to do that. Advertising is really, really well received on Twitch, and we've got Lumen studies to support, eye tracking and where people are looking for the skip button, which isn't on Twitch. But there's lots of other ways that they understand that advertising supports the streamers. So advertising is super welcomed on Twitch. So the first stage is definitely looking at video advertising, but then we look at our streamer activations and how can they be working with brands to elevate, a shared passion around the value of that brand, for them to talk about it in an authentic way. And then as you move up the ladder even further, and once you've kind of got your right to play within gaming, then we think about more custom solutions. So whether that's a custom commercial that we create, whether that's in-game activations, there's lots of opportunities that our brand partnership studios work with on a strategic basis based on, the kind of entry-level playing for the brand, and essentially how big they want to talk about a certain opportunity. So we definitely say, kind of dip your toe in before you kind of jump to something big, because authenticity with brands and Gen Twitch, which we call our audience, is super important.
And are there some brands that you felt have done a really good job or are naturally suited to not just advertising on Twitch, but advertising to gamers more generally?
I mean, just to kind of maybe split that a little bit, when we think about gamers, and we come up with this a lot, gamers are pretty much, they're an entertainment kind of brand, vertical in itself. That's the way that we think about them. Gamers eat, they have banks, they listen to music, but they get bucketed in this spotty teenager in a room that doesn't eat and sits in the dark all day. So when we think of gamers, and there's a recent study from Deloitte, 87% of Gen Z have said that their number one entertainment is gaming. So when you think about the kind of broad nature of gaming, it's pretty huge. So then when you think about brands getting into gaming and the way that they authentically do it, there's lots of different ways of doing that. And just to kind of bring that to life in executions that we've already worked on, so P&G, CPG brand, Aussie Hair Care, they wanted to talk to a female audience and really highlight a product that they had, which was SOS, which is Repair Your Hair. And so we created in-game challenges on female streams and targeted females only on Twitch, to think about in-game challenges within Fortnite, where if their health went down, there would be an Aussie challenge that came into gameplay to allow them to kind of level up and continue the play, because Aussie's there to repair your hair alongside your gameplay. And the responses that we got from the chat were incredible. And again, you're there to support female gaming streamers who maybe don't get as much of a highlight in the gaming industry as we would want them to. So that's a really, really strong example of a brand that had dipped their toe into video and then just kind of leveled up into that space and had really, really great engagement.
Into in-game advertising as well.
Yeah.
So, what would you say the biggest challenges are that you see crop up often with some of the brands that you work with, obviously just speaking generally?
Brands trying to dad dance in gaming. That's probably the biggest issue that we have. So if you don't know gaming, don't be afraid to ask the questions that help you to get into it, but don't come and use the wrong terminology or thumbs up, yeah, we've got it. And language is such a big thing within gaming. One of the big things within Twitch, and especially within the chat, is our emotes. And so when you think about that in emojis in your WhatsApp group, you probably wouldn't use the same emojis to your friends group as you would your mum and your family group, right? And so that's the same within gaming, and especially on Twitch. These communities build up a certain type of language, and for you to really get involved in that, you need to understand them, and you need to understand how to speak to them in the right language. So when brands have tried to push us, and we push back, by the way, we tell you when it's not okay to go down one route, but essentially, if you try and force a message that means something to the brand over to what value that brings to the audience, I think that that's something that gamers will pick up on. If the streamer doesn't feel confident about the values that that brand brings, it doesn't come through as authentic, and the community pick up on it. So, there's a lot of ways that you can kind of work between the brand, the community, and the streamer that can break. But if we get that right, then, that's when you see some really great, magic moments on Twitch.
And they're well received, or are there times where, maybe the gaming community, because we talked about at the last conversation that we had during the last panel. So you do have to be careful. They can be a cynical bunch. And especially if they're constantly interacting with each other.
Yeah.
So can you speak a little bit more to how are things really received amongst gamers? But then of course, you can do targeting as well.
Yeah. So first of all, gamers love working with brands. It's money for them. It also allows them to grow. So we think about the interaction between a flywheel. So what's important to a gamer? Money, love. So love from the fans, love from Twitch. They want to know that they're doing a good job. They want to know that they're creating good content, and what does that mean with getting more access to the homepage? Fame, the more that they do, the bigger their following gets. And lastly, inspiration. So how are they inspiring their fans? How are they being inspired themselves? And that comes from the tech that we create at Twitch ourselves to make sure that that interaction is really strong. But that also comes from brands. They want to be challenged. They want to, put themselves out there and have a different way of engaging with their community outside of, we say this, our bread and butter is sometimes for some streamers, they'll play Fortnite day in and day out, and they still have huge following. Then you have variety streamers who will flip between games. But when you have a brand involved and you have challenges and, they're kind of developing themselves, that's really, really great to see. And then when you throw diversity in the mix and you have the ability to, really help streamers grow, I think that's the most exciting part that we see. And we've had some unbelievable campaigns. I think two that one I'll call out, just I don't know what time I'm on. That's the time, perfect. So we had a young black male streamer, and he would always talk about his ambitions about, being big on Twitch and, growing on Twitch. And he'd say his ambition was to be sponsored by a can, but he'd never disclose what this can was because he didn't want to give free marketing to the brand. And so we knew this, and so our BPS team, just constantly listening to our streamers, what are they talking about? What can we pick up on? Then we get a brief from Coca-Cola, and so Coca-Cola say to us we want to launch this over the course of last year for Christmas. Who can we work with? So we've got the perfect person, because if you can elevate him, his community are going to absolutely, go off the rails and get so excited about the fact that you've been sponsored. And so we do the stream, and it says sponsored by Coke, and he drops his first, subs to the chat. And for those that don't know what subs are, subscriptions on Twitch. So brands can actually offer a monetary value on Twitch to their users to be able to give free subscriptions to channels, which would normally cost around £5 a month. They saw it came from Coke, and the chat was like, oh my God, I'm going to go and buy a can of Coke now. They finally sponsored you. I'm so buzzing for you, mate. He was on the homepage. So, the chat they listen and they learn. And, he's got more followers. He's been sponsored by Coke, which opens up huge opportunities for him. And, as a young black male from South London, he's he's shouting about it. He's telling everyone, and he will always talk so positively about Coke.
So what I'm hearing is that there's a lot of overlap between a sort of almost like a social media, well, it is a social media in a way, but a sort of social media creator, right, a streamer, and the gaming community. Yeah. That the approach could be a bit similar to the gaming community as, a different social media channel.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the length of time that it takes to build a community on Twitch is a long time. It's not just necessarily how much time they spend on stream, but it's the length of time it takes to build. And how do you get on that homepage? The first part is with a brand, and otherwise it's how you're trending. What are you doing to diversify your content that people are picking up on? So whilst a lot of our streamers, will do some live content and post it on YouTube, being in that moment and being live, that's the biggest point of difference. And I think that that's the behavioural difference that you get on Twitch versus other social media within gaming.
We're nearly out of time, so last question. What do you see going forward in terms of the gaming community? What do you think the biggest trend is going to be in the next, let's say, 6 months?
So the research team at Twitch just created one of the most impressive pieces of research that I've seen. So if you download Generation Twitch or search for it on Google, you'll be able to get a version of that. Two of the themes that we found, and this is through semiotic research, so, cultural shifts and, essentially talking to the meme culture, so a lot of imagery-based research, we were able to really dig deep into like what's important for these communities. Inclusivity, for me, is the biggest piece. It's like, how do we, again, make sure that we are supporting new streamers, diverse streamers, and making sure that we are welcoming as many different communities to grow as possible. And the other thing is moving from passive to collaborative interaction. It's no longer about just watching what's on the screen. People want to be a part of that content. So, with regards to the different parts of gaming, there are so many moving parts, but actually they're the two key pieces for us, is inclusivity and collaboration, that we're working on with most brands right now.
Great. Well, thank you, Lou, and can we get a round of applause for Ms. Lou Armisen?
Thank you.